Now someone could say, well, God can do anything. That's not the point. We agree, God can do anything. But that's not the issue. The issue is this: does this scripture reflect reality? The one who wrote this, does this seem to be like the one who wrote this knew the processes that exist in this universe? That the night and day is caused by the alternation and the rotation of the earth on its axis? No. The one who wrote the Bible clearly did not know that this was the process through which the night and day occurred. They obviously imagined that there was some entity of light and some entity of darkness, and that light and darkness were caused by the existence of these entities. In fact, this was exactly the ancient Babylonian myth. So what we find is the Bible actually, rather than reflecting scientific fact, actually reflects ancient Babylonian mythology. And it would seem that the Bible, or not that there was an original Bible, that the true revelation of God was corrupted and changed in order to make it conform with these mythologies and these ideas that existed at the time. So we therefore cannot say that such a book is from God. Rather, because on the basis of what? On the rational basis that this actually contradicts reality. These statements contradict reality. And that is a discrepancy. And we would not imagine that a book that is from God to contain such contradictions and to contain such discrepancies. But when we examine the Quran, when we look at the Quran, we find not only is the Quran consistent with itself and consistent with external realities, in fact the Quran is making statements that, as I mentioned before, scientists have only begun to discover recently. Statements about astronomy, statements about geology, statements about biology, statements on oceanography. In fact, so many fields of scientific discovery, the Quran is mentioning things that are amazing some of the top world scientists. How could this information be in a book 1,400 years old? And some of them have concluded quite rationally, quite sensibly, that it must be a revelation from the Creator of the heavens and the earth. So this is one manner in which we could decide and we could see whether a book is revelation or not. So first of all, the Quran calls us to this beautiful, pure, monotheistic belief, this rational belief that there is one God who has created everything, and that God is different and distinct from the creation. Secondly, the Quran is consistent with itself. Now there is one more thing I want to look at. And the other aspect I want to look at is the messenger, the person to whom the revelation was given. Now there are many different ways we could imagine. There are many different ways we could imagine that God might let us know about Himself, how to thank Him, how to worship Him, how we should live our lives. There are many different ways. For example, this is just thinking and guessing and thinking, well, how could we, maybe, for example, God might leave a book just lying around somewhere or inscribed in a rock or something like that. So this is one idea, that there is a book just lying around, waiting there to be discovered, that contains the information that we need. This is one possibility. The second possibility is that God would let every single individual human being know. Every human being and every individual human being would be inspired with that knowledge and with that message and with that revelation from God. This is another possibility. Or the other possibility is that God would send a messenger. God would give this knowledge and this revelation to a specific and special human being. Now, Islam teaches that this is the way, the last way, that this is the manner in which God has chosen to let us know, human beings, let us know about Himself, about how we should be grateful to Him, about how we should worship Him and thank Him, and how we should live our lives in a way that is pleasing to Him. This is the manner, through prophets. So Islam accepts and believes in the concept of prophethood, that there are special, chosen human beings. And again, when we think about it, when we look at the nature of the human being, and when we look at this option as compared to other options, we find without doubt that this is the most rational, this is the most sensible, and this is the best means of conveying that message to the human beings, because there are really more weaknesses and more deficiencies in the other methods. For example, one of the deficiencies in the idea that God could have left some book lying around, or God could have inscribed this message somewhere, and we just discover it and we have to go and discover it. One of the deficiencies in it is there is no practical example of another human being living and acting out that revelation. This is a problem, because human beings might say, well, that's all well and good, and here are all these rules, and here are all these things that we have to follow, and this is how we should live our life. But where's a practical example? Where can I see someone doing that? This is something that human beings, from our common experience, we really need that. We have a great need of a practical example for us, either to see directly in front of us, or that we could read about historically, but we need some physical, practical example to see a human being doing those things. That's why the idea of some divine being, some God, some demigod, some angel, some supernatural being coming down, it's very deficient, because it always leaves the argument open. But hey, that's not a person, that's an angel. That's not a human being, that's a God. How can we be like a God? How can we be like an angel? It's a perfectly fair argument. But if God sends a messenger who is a human being, who eats food like we eat food, who marries like we marry, who has the same desires that we have, the same needs that we have, has the same weaknesses that the human being has, yet this person is able to overcome those weaknesses and manifest those excellent qualities and display them for us in a manner that is practical and real, then we can say, yes, there is a living example of another human being who can live their life in accordance to the will of God. And we can imitate that, and we can emulate that. That is why God chose to reveal His message to human beings, although albeit very special human beings. And those very special human beings were the prophets, the messengers. Islam teaches us that there were many messengers sent to many nations, to many people. Some of those messengers you may be familiar with: Abraham, Moses, Jacob, Jesus. They are all mentioned in the Quran as messengers of God. They were all prophets of God. They were not gods or sons of God. They were human beings who were given revelation from God. We believe that the last of all of those messengers was Muhammad. May Allah's peace, may God's peace and blessings be upon him. And that he is the guide for all of humanity. And he is the final messenger. And he is the messenger for our time. And that is another means through which we could understand that Islam is the truth. When we look at the life of Prophet Muhammad, when we look at the life and the teaching and the action and the actions of this man, really a person must be convinced that this man is really truly what he claimed to be, a messenger of God. Because his example, the way that he lived his life, the manner in which he behaved, really manifest those qualities of goodness, of honesty, of truthfulness, of trustworthiness, of sincerity, of compassion, yet at the same time of firmness and uncompromising dedication to the message that God desires him to deliver. If we look at the life of Prophet Muhammad, we find all of those qualities are manifest in this man. In fact, really to study the life of Prophet Muhammad is to study one of those convincing proofs and those rational means through which and by which the human being can come to know that indeed Islam is the revelation from the Creator of the heavens and the earth for the guidance and for the benefit of all of the human beings, so that we could live in true peace with ourselves, with our families, with our society, and with the world at large.